Good morning, Bobbi Ann. How are you today?
Good. How are you, Dave?
It's it's a podcast with MPP Bobbi Ann Brady, Haldeman, Norfolk. Boy, it's been quiet, eh? I usually make notes to talk to you about, and then I got stuck on one little thing that kind of blew up, and you were part of, and then I got pissed off. Sorry about the language. And I thought, well, we need to, me and you need to have a little therapy session with each other and figure this all out because um, and for those that don't know, you can find this pretty easy, this video with Bobbi Ann asking a simple question to the premier and him kind of ducking. I felt like he ducked the question. I'm not going to be honest. This is my opinion, not yours. You can tell me what you think. And then I thought he came full circle and kind of turned into a bit of a bully. And I didn't appreciate that. I didn't care. This is going to sound bad. I didn't care so much about you because you're tough. I'm not worried about you. You can handle it. But I did feel for the folks of Haldeman, Norfolk, like we were just talked down to. And one thing I learned many, many years ago, don't do that in Haldeman, Norfolk. These are hardcore, hardworking people who do what they want. And it reminded me of a story when I started the hub 18 years ago. My very first day, a corporate entity called me and said, "You won't last 6 months, we'll bury you." And I thought, you really don't know me. You don't know the people of Haldeman, Norfolk and the way we function. I'm sure that thought probably crossed your mind, but I'm going to give you the floor now because I'm done rambling. And let's start there. Maybe walk me through this whole incident, will you?
Yeah, there's so much to unpack here, but it was an exciting day, and so my question came from a good spot, in the sense that it really hurts me as I travel the riding and people tell me that for the past while they've been choosing between heating and eating, some of them. And these are hardworking families. These are people who are busting their hump every day. They're going out there, they're working hard, they're paying more, they're getting less, and they're falling further and further behind. And I've sat in the Ontario legislature the past few months, and there are days where I often feel like I'm on Parliament Hill and not at Queen's Park because the carbon tax continues to be brought up at Queen's Park every single day. And it's the answer, or not the answer, but the response to nearly every single question asked in the legislature. And it's inappropriate. I don't like the carbon tax. I don't like the fact that it is making life unaffordable for the majority of my constituents. It's harder on all of us. We need a better plan. And I'm always one of those people that if I'm going to actually identify a problem, then there should be a solution. And so I've done a lot of research on what Scott Moe has done in Saskatchewan, and he has removed, he refuses to collect the carbon tax on home heating in Saskatchewan. And I learned this week because people have said, be careful, because then we won't get our rebates. Well, actually, the people of Saskatchewan are still getting their rebates, and they're not paying carbon tax on home heating. And so, I thought, why can't the Ontario government do this? Why aren't we doing this? So I started a petition back in January. I launched it in January. And the government is supposed to answer that petition. They're supposed to give me an answer, and I haven't gotten an answer. So I thought, I'm taking it to the floor. I'm going to ask why we can't do this. The premier actually had three ways out. And I didn't think he would answer my question. I actually thought that he would bounce it to the Minister of Energy. And he didn't, and he had three ways out. He could have said to me, is the member opposite asking me to break the law? Because there is this story out there that Scott Moe acting in this way is actually breaking the law. He'll take that up with the feds. He could have said, we don't have a Crown Energy Corporation, like Sask Energy in Saskatchewan. Or he could have gone a completely different way and said, you know what, we're working on another plan to take to Ottawa, because Ottawa has said, if you bring forward another plan, we will look at it and perhaps adopt it. So he had three ways out, and he didn't take them. He decided to go on the attack, and it was very clear he was flustered. He was, putting money on people's tables and food in their pockets, and he was stammering and he was shaking. He was very angry. And I think that he was angry about two things, because I knew he would talk about his legislation on the referendum with respect to, carbon tax in the future provincially. And I called that a publicity stunt because a consultative process, legislation to create a consultative process down the road, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, or maybe never, does absolutely nothing to help with affordability today. We need solutions today. We don't need to be protected from something that may never happen down the road. So I called his legislation a publicity stunt. I would have liked to have called it show and sham, but I would have been called out for poor language in the legislature. But I called it a publicity stunt, and that made him very angry. But I think that he gets so fired up with me is because he knows he's wrong. He knows that he made a mistake in Haldeman, Norfolk, and he's too proud to admit it. People told him in 2022, don't try and tell the people of Haldeman, Norfolk how to vote. It's going to backfire on you. And he went with the idea that, no, it's been a conservative riding since, for 27 years. And he went with that notion and didn't listen. And the people here dug in their heels. And according to, my social media, after the incident last week, people are willing to dig in their heels again. And it wasn't lost on the folks of Haldeman, Norfolk when the premier said, I'll make sure you don't have a job after the next election. People went, well, how can he do that? He doesn't run the votes here. We do. We're the people who vote for you. So, the people here get it. And I think the premier is upset that we get it. And that's why he lashes out at me. But, I will be punished. I've been punished over the past few weeks with certain things. And, I'm waiting for the punishment. But that is not going to prevent me or prohibit me from continuing to ask the questions on behalf of the people of Haldeman, Norfolk. They need to be asked. And I've had members of other parties say to me, oh my goodness, like we really need to do better in asking these questions. So it won't stop me.
I got to ask this question because you and I have both heard this since you've been elected is, an independent can't do anything. They can't, they have no power. I beg to differ because you kind of just made your point. Mm-hmm. You went to the premier and asked this tough question, and it wasn't answered. Like you said, he got riled. So what do you say to that? Because to me, that's what you're supposed to be doing. That's what we're paying you to do.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I've got so much to say on this because, I had a newspaper reach out to me locally after, and he said, well, on social media, I see, and I said, oh yeah, I know my 12 adversaries in Haldeman County. I know who they are, and I said, and I know what they say, and I said, with no disrespect, but what did we get before that we're not getting now? Municipal funding still flows. Hospital funding still flows. Education funding still flows. Every single municipality across this province, whether it's held by a conservative, a liberal, an NDP, a Green Party candidate, or by Bobbi Ann Brady, they're all getting that funding. And every single one of those municipalities goes to the province and says, we have an infrastructure deficit. So nobody is getting more than what they're entitled to. But you know what the people of Haldeman, Norfolk get? They get honest, genuine representation. And I said to a fellow, Haldeman County had a business appreciation night the following night. And I walked up to a group of men. I won't identify them because they would be easily identified. But one of them, who I didn't recognize in the group, told me my question to the premier was unfair. And I said, could you please explain to me why my question was unfair? In fact, he could have turned it on me. He had 3 opportunities to turn it on me, and he didn't. So I said, tell me what's unfair about it. And he couldn't answer the question. And I said, would you rather me go there and be a trained SEAL and sit there and clap about things and not hold the government to account with respect to your taxpayer dollars? And he didn't know what to say. So, I would just go back and say, what were we getting before? What were we getting before that we're not getting now? I'll refer to the MZO. I started a petition, 2 elections, one on the issue of that development at Nanticoke. I started a petition on the MZO. Guess what has been stopped? The Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing has said to us, we will not be issuing that MZO and we're going to revisit the framework. That's a win. He listened. right? Ministry of Transportation, the new minister, I go and I talk to him almost every day, and it's becoming a bit of a standing joke between the two of us. Very, very nice young man. And I had 3 MTO issues last week that were holding up some key development issues here in Norfolk County. I leaned on his desk every day of the week, and guess what? He cleared up 2 of my 3 transportation issues. So I am getting things done. And I had a meeting this week, and I'm not going to divulge who it is just for their confidentiality, but somebody who is very connected politically, and especially to the PC caucus. And that person said to me, Bobbi Ann, if you have days where you believe you aren't being heard, I assure you, you are being heard and you are being respected. And so, I know who the people are who say, yeah, we, as an independent, we're not going to get anything. I know who they are, and they're threatened by me. They're threatened by the people of Haldeman, Norfolk, who are critical thinkers who can figure this out for themselves.
You said something earlier, and it kind of caught me off guard. I didn't understand it, and you don't have to elaborate, but I'm just curious. You said they're going to punish me. How can they punish you? You're an independent.
Oh, there are ways, and there are different ways they can. I don't know if you knew, but a few weeks ago I was removed from committee. I sat on the government's most prestigious committee up until December, the finance committee, and I really, really enjoyed my work on that committee. And let's be honest, why wouldn't they want me on finance? I am a fiscal conservative, right?
Yeah.
But I also went to committee. I went to pre-budget hearings with a very open and honest mind, and I asked the hard questions. So I think my biggest downfall with respect to my committee work is that I let the government know how much I loved being there, that I found it fruitful. And when they discovered how much I loved my committee work, how much I was getting from that committee work on behalf of my constituents, they said, no. So they moved me to a different committee. And I loved that committee equally because I could talk about social policy. I could talk about some of the biggest social issues facing Haldeman, Norfolk. And so I went and I said how much I loved social policy committee. And then a few weeks ago, they changed some things in the standing orders, which allowed them to bring forward, kind of robust motions that they didn't have to give us notice about. So just out of the blue, one afternoon, they stood in the House and they brought forward a motion to turf 6 of us from committee. And I'm in good company because the leader of the Green Party lost his committee position, Mike Schreiner, a good friend of mine, John Fraser, who is a very well-respected Liberal MPP, interim leader. He was gone. Former bank executive Stephanie Bowman, who I sat with on finance committee, and she knows her stuff. She was gone. Dr. Adil Shamji, who I sat with on social policy, gone. And I think the last one was Stephen Blaise from Ottawa, who also lost his position. So 6 of us who very much love committee work and who ask the tough questions, gone. And the problem that I have with that is that each of those committees that we sat on had 9 members. Balance of the power, obviously, in the government hands. But there was, a good representation of the opposition who would hold them to account. They have not replaced us on those committees. So they have downsized the amount of accountability on those committees. And again, for me, it's about democracy. That is not in the best interest of the taxpayer to have less accountability. I have sat at committee hearings where members of the public come in and they testify and they have good ideas. They're the professionals often on these files. And we are there to get one would think that we are at committee. The whole reason we are at committee is to go through a bill and make it better. Yeah. Hundreds of amendments sometimes on bills, not one adopted.
Plus
so it's not about making a better bill.
Well, the diversity, you need that. I want that diversity within that committee to understand from all over the province, to have a better understanding of what we're getting, right?
Right.
And I feel like that again is a slight against the folks that live in this great province. So in that aspect, it seems like, okay, now I understand what you meant by the term punishment.
Mm-hmm.
My next thing is I don't want to bring this up because I feel I'm concerned because again, I feel like the aggression he showed was bullying to you and to the folks of Haldeman Norfolk. But let's turn this around for a minute. You and I, let's look at what we should be telling our kids. This is not the way to act. This is not the example you want to set, but you do want to ask these questions. In your own words, like, what would your message be to kids here? Because this to me, we got to look at this from a different perspective and understand how, when kids face this when they're growing up, and you've often said to me, it's a bit of a school environment there, what you're working in. It seems there's little cliques and everything else going on. So what would your message be to the kids out there today? I mean, I know you had a meeting that day, didn't you, with kids right afterwards or something?
I did, and that was beautiful. So the funny thing is, I went right from question period to a meeting with 60 young parliamentarians from Mississauga.
Literally
And
right after that?
right after, yeah. So things are buzzing. People are trying to chat with me, and I'm being ushered up to this room, and I don't realize that I'm going into the PC caucus boardroom for this meeting, and that made me feel funny. And so I step in, and these 60 young kids, many of them were very excited to see me because I just blew the roof off of question period, and they were watching. And so they asked if they could have a photo with me. And it was pointed out very clearly by some conservatives that they would not have their photo with Bobbi Ann Brady in the caucus boardroom. And this one young man says, "That's fine. I'm willing to step outside." And so we stepped outside the boardroom, took our photo, went back in. They took me to the front of the boardroom and said, we want to talk to you. And I said, "Well, what about my colleagues?" And they said, "No, we want to talk to you." And it gives me hope for the future because their questions were very well thought out. They loved the fact that I was holding things to account. They loved my independence, that they see our democracy being eroded on a daily basis. And in fact, when someone at the back of the room, tried to shut down the meeting because, Bobbi Ann was getting too much time, one young lady stood up and said, "No, this is actually our meeting. We will continue. We have some more questions, and we actually run this meeting. Thanks for allowing us to use your boardroom, but we run the meeting." And that gives me hope for the future. She did it, in a nice way. But their last question to me was, how do we get over the fear if we want to do something and we're afraid to do it, and people are trying to persuade us not to do something. And I said, if somebody is telling you you shouldn't do something, and I mean, in the professional and in the academic world, it usually means that you should probably do it. And I reminded them that, in 2022, I was told to run off and be the mayor. I was told to, come back in 5 years. I was told to be a good soldier of the party and just take it. And I said, that's because they were threatened by me. They knew that I had the ability to win that election. So I said, it wasn't the right thing for the people of Haldeman Norfolk. And I knew that. And I knew that that's why they were telling me that, because they didn't want the best thing for the people of Haldeman Norfolk. So I said, if somebody tells you you can't do it, go do it. Go try and do it. You have nothing to lose. And, we're always going to have a bully. Everywhere in life, there's always going to be a bully. There's always going to be people who don't like you. You're not their cup of tea. I know I'm not a lot of people's cup of tea. That's okay. Right? That's okay, because I know what I'm doing is, I might be ruffling feathers, but it's the right thing to do. And I know that just by the response that I got last week, not only in Haldeman Norfolk, and God bless the people of Haldeman Norfolk who have my back. I am so very blessed when something like this happens. They are the first, you are all the first to defend me, and I appreciate that. But I also got a number of messages from right across Ontario from people who said, "Good for you. We need more of this. We wish our member would ask these tough questions. So you know what? We can call it bullying. We can call it what we want. The premier and anyone else can continue to try and bully me and hold me down. It's not going to work. They don't know me, and they don't know the people of Haldeman Norfolk.
Where were those kids from? Just
They were
curious.
from Mississauga.
Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting,
very,
right?
very
Yeah.
bright bunch. The students that I get to meet, I also had lunch last week with our page from Haldeman
Yeah.
Norfolk here, Emerson Ricker from Dunville.
Yeah.
What an absolute pleasure. Bright young man. I get to meet so many young people. Our young people often take the brunt of, bad press, and everyone wants to have a say about our young people, and, that they're lazy and they're this, that, and the other, and they're not like we were when we were growing up. And I certainly don't see that. I have so much hope for our future, because our young people actually see through much of what is going on in our society today.
My last little bit I want to talk about is, I know the Speaker of the House sort of told the Premier that he can't talk like that. And I think I want to ask you a little bit about those rules that go with that. Like, now, when something like that happens, is there usually an apology that's forthcoming? Because you're not allowed to talk like that. He made sort of that direct line to you. Like you said, I didn't think they were allowed to do that. They have to address sort of the House as it is.
Right.
So explain that to me.
So the rules of engagement in the Ontario legislature, if I was asking you a question in the House, I couldn't say, and Dave Scott across the way.
Right.
I have to direct my question through the Speaker. So through you, Speaker, to the member from whatever riding, or to the minister. It has to be through the Speaker. So the Premier speaking directly to me, telling me that I would be out of a job after 2026 was the first problem. And then, of course, his words, his words were not appreciated by the Speaker as well. So he kind of got slapped down twice on that. Is there going to be an apology? I highly doubt it. I mean, I would think that he should have done it already.
Yeah.
I think he's too proud to do that, and that's fine. I don't need empty words.
I just thought, when I saw the video, I thought maybe there would be more repercussions because of the House Speaker telling the Premier that. Because I thought, well, wait, that's you're out of line. Like, I guess that's it. He just says, don't do that again, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's fine. And I talked about some of the people who have contacted us from across Ontario who are appreciative, and there have been people who have come to me, to my association over the past few days, and they've donated money. They are Conservatives, and not from Haldeman Norfolk. They are from far reaches of this province, who are saying, thank you. Thank you for asking those hard questions. Thank you for acting professional. And one of the things that people noticed, and I credit my martial arts background on this, is the fact that I remained composed in the face of a very aggressive attack on myself. And so I still had to deliver my supplementary question after the Premier told me I'd be out of a job. And, 5-6 years ago, I may have gone at him, but my martial arts background has, I don't do a perfect kata. I don't do anything perfect in karate, but it has been really good for that ability to persevere and to put on that, we call it an iron shirt. And that's often, to make sure that if you get punched in the gut, you're not going to lose your breath. And I was punched in the gut by the Premier, and I didn't lose my breath, and I kept my composure. And that was not lost on a lot of a lot of the people here in Haldeman Norfolk, who said, I just loved how you went back at him in such a calm way. And, he really showed that he wasn't the leader in that particular moment.
I like the word that you use there, persevere, because I think that speaks a lot to the folks of Haldeman Norfolk. Mm-hmm. And one thing it kind of made me chuckle a little bit, because I thought back to growing up again, and you were in Delhi, I was in Dover, and if we had to play hockey against each other, it was a huge rivalry, right? It was rah, rah. And it's the minute somebody from outside Haldeman Norfolk tried to come after us, we were all band together, right?
That's 100%. That's the beauty of it.
Mentality. And I could see that happening that day, and when when you spoke and the premier spoke, and I was like, you know what? We have our differences. All of us do from different corners of Hollywood, Norfolk, but you don't mess with one of our own. It's kind
That's
of that
right.
the
Yeah,
unwritten
yeah,
rule. Like, come on, dude. Like, so
yeah.
on that note, I was like, and I did see a lot of the stuff on Facebook. A lot of folks just sending you lots of love to say, keep it going because we do need that voice heard. And
Mm-hmm.
and I love the story about the kids because that to me that's like you said, that's our future. They're understanding it. They're seeing how much of a game it is, and they're not seeing results. And they
That's
want
right.
results.
Mhm.
They're driven. That generation is going to be driven. They're going to get things done. And sometimes when the premier needs to listen, maybe just
Mhm.
stop talking and start listening a little bit
Mhm.
more. It might make a big difference in your day.
That's right. And what I've said is, um, if this government, and he didn't like it either, and I didn't say this originally, but I've been sitting there and we've been talking about the carbon tax for months at
Yeah.
Queen's Park. The carbon tax is federal.
Yeah.
So if we're going to talk about it, then we better be able to find a solution to take to the prime minister to say, listen, your carbon tax is awful. It's hurting families. If we can't affect change at the provincial level, then why aren't we talking about things that we can actually change, like healthcare, education, policing, homelessness, drug addiction? Why aren't we talking about that? Why do we focus every single day on an issue that our very own provincial government says is a federal issue? It's a distraction. They're using it as a distraction to talk about the issues and the problems that they are actually responsible for. And that bothers me because that's not a good return on investment for the Ontario taxpayer.
No, it isn't. I totally agree 100%. And it just kind of, you know, you, we always get off track a little bit, but there's so many different
Yeah.
venues we could go down right now because what you've brought up. And I think, your petition and referring to Saskatchewan is a prime example of just like, hey, we understand that that's what the feds passed. We're
Mhm.
just asking you to look at it and see what could be done. Here's what Saskatchewan's doing. And I think that lack of understanding of what folks need on a daily basis is kind of what worries me. Like,
It,
when you keep taking money out of the pocket, at some
right.
point they're gonna give up. We don't
And
want that.
if people saw a return on their investment, it would be a different story, but nobody's seeing a return on what they're paying. And, you know, I had another thought and I've lost it.
No, but you're right but I mean, the average guy and girl, we're not. We understand that carbon tax is here, but we're
Mhm.
concerned about feeding our family that day.
That's right.
Like, you know what I mean? It's so far off in la la land that we can't even relate because we're
Mhm.
just like, oh my god, this is what I got to pay for fuel now.
Yeah.
I got to cut something else out, right? How do I survive this?
Mhm.
And I think that's the point that all the governments keep forgetting is that the average everyday person, we don't have time to sit there, and that's why you do such a great job with what you do. You've got to go through all that stuff. We don't have time. We're trying to
Hey,
just survive.
you just brought me to what
Oh
you made
no!
me
Oh no! I did.
you made me remember. So, I don't get up and ask a question that I don't know the answer to. I do extensive research. This one in particular, the number of podcasts I listened to, the amount of research I did to actually ask that question so that I knew how to respond if they responded a certain way, was extensive, to the point of the night before I was about to ask that question. I was speaking to one of my staff members about another issue, and I said, I'm not confident yet. And she says, why not? I said, I don't have a piece, and I don't want to get up, and I don't want to be wrong, or I don't want to be, I don't want them to actually discredit me in some way. And I ended up finding that piece of information in the 11th hour, and I went forward with the question. And it was the same actually with the Ontario Land Tribunal question. Part of that information that I got on Mr. Hewitt asking for the abolishment of the land tribunal a few years ago came in the 11th hour. I do extensive research. I don't just get up and ask willy-nilly questions because that's how you can be discredited. And, there are going to be times where you ask a question and you don't know something that the government knows, but it's really, really important to me that I do extensive research so that I know what I'm talking about when they respond back to me. So I don't take these things lightly. And it's because I want to do a good job for everyone here. People say to me, what's your biggest fear? And I have two big fears, and that's it. I'm really not afraid of anything, because fear can paralyze you. But I have a fear that, uh, number one, for my children, their future and what that may look like. Secondly, my biggest fear as the MPP for Haldeman Norfolk is disappointing the people that have chosen me to serve on their behalf, and I never want to disappoint them. And that's why I put so much time and energy into actually researching these questions and making sure that when I stand in the Ontario legislature, I'm at my very best.
When you ask a question, you always learn something. That's the way I always look at it. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you're afraid to ask a question, I always think, why am I afraid? Okay, I know what I'm talking about, but I want to
Mm-hmm.
learn something. And I think
Right.
that's part of what's lost in the House a lot. People are
Mm-hmm.
afraid to learn about other people or to learn, there's a different way. The diversity, like we talked about earlier on the committees, a prime example. You got to have those things in order to ask the questions to help move this society forward.
That's right.
Boy,
Yeah. I don't see it. I just don't see it. And it makes me sad, because it is an erosion. It's a continual erosion of our democracy.
well, yeah, you're right. I agree 100%. But that's why we have elections. That's why every 4 years we get to make those choices. And that's what the premier needs to be aware of, that people will be making their choices in a couple of years. Um, your phones keep dinging. I know it's lunchtime. What's going on? You got
It's
a
not
lunch date? Are you
lunchtime.
late?
I've got
Come
another
on.
meeting about to start, but I do want to give a happy little shout out. I stood in the House the other day and did a statement on
Yes.
the Langton Old Timer Six Pack Tournament. So let's end on a happy note that what a fantastic event. 28 years of phenomenal hockey happening in the most, one of the most
Yes.
historic barns in this province, and bringing people to the little town of Langton and make it bustle from Wednesday night to Sunday is absolutely incredible. And I'm happy to report that my ladies team, there was a ladies division this year.
Oh no.
Yeah, we went undefeated until the championship game, and then we didn't play very well, and we were edged out by a very talented team from the Stratford area. But my goodness, you can tell by the smile on my
Yep.
face what a great weekend that was. And my son played in the tournament in the carded division, and just that local talent coming back, and then seeing some of the I'll call them the old timers, but they're really my age, guys who played really good hockey and come back and still, get out there and light it up. It's just, my goodness, we're blessed.
How many penalties did you take?
I didn't get any penalties, but I
Okay.
did score a few goals.
Well, I knew you'd score a few goals. I've seen her play hockey, folks. She gets extremely focused. It's kind of scary, and I think that's what she probably does in her in the House as well. But I appreciate that in you. Thank you for taking the time today. Keep asking the tough questions. I know
I
it's
will.
you got to do it.
Guarantee.
Yeah,
Yep.
and that gives us something to talk about every month, and makes my
Okay.
job real easy.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thanks, Dave. Have a great weekend.
You too.